And here we go. It is No Pucks Given, episode 19. Hi, I'm Dan Kingerski. I am literally on Tampa Bay. The little hotel that I got hooked up with that was very economical is right on the water. I'm about probably 7 or 8 miles out of downtown, but Tampa was stupid expensive this time. So we're making it do and enjoying the water. So here's what we've got on tap. Let me get rid of the big logo. And there I am. See, I'm just kind of holding this because the airport is over my shoulder there. The bay is over there. Got several questions on Twitter. One, of course, hey, Dan, who are the Penguins going to sign this summer? Well, there's a long way to go before we really get into the nitty-gritty on who they're going to sign this summer. I think we can talk about potential names right now, but don't get too attached, don't get in love yet, because there are going to be some guys who sign. There are going to be some changes to the Penguins roster and organization that we don't necessarily see coming right now. So the Penguin situation will be different, let's say July 1st, than it is today. So all of those things, just kind of take those, take what we say today with a bit of a grain of salt, because otherwise there's no possible way to predict that. A great question came in on Twitter. Hey, when will the Penguins goalies be available? The new, the prospects. Also, we're going to talk about shootouts and Tristan Jarry. In fact, let's start with Jarry, because I think a lot pinwheels around the re-emerging Penguins goaltender. Look, he's too young to be a prospect, but he's not too old to be discarded. I think that's maybe an important part here as we get into where the Penguins go for next season. Don't overlook the fact that Alex Nedeljkovic was brilliant on Friday and Jarry started on Sunday. So clearly that whole win and you're in sort of rotation that has been around for the better part of a year is out the window. The Penguins are turning to relying on and just keeping the load on Tristan Jarry. I suspect in as much of an experiment as anything. All right, let's see. Are you different? Have you worked on things? Can you handle it? Makes sense to me. And Jarry was really good Sunday. Where the heck were we? Florida. Florida bombarded the Penguins in the third period. 30 shot attempts? 30. That's unbelievable. They got all of 12 on net. So Jarry was spared, I suppose, the brunt or, some missed, so on and so forth. But, a couple of the goals Jarry was awkward on, especially the tying goal. He actually was in the right position to make the save and kind of fell over himself, sort of came up off the ice when he was already down on it. To his credit, Tristan Jarry actually, I don't know if somebody pulled him aside and kind of read some of the criticisms of him, or if this is part of the maturation and humble pie that he had to eat in January when they sent him through waivers and nobody bit. But he said, on the second goal, I would have liked more of a gap. I don't know if I would have saved it, but had I done that, been more on top of my crease, I would have had a better chance. On the third one, I wanted to do this or that, and it was interesting. There was no sort of contrived nature on it. By the way, did you hear the fish jump? That was pretty cool. Regardless, I'm going to try to find him or her. I don't know. Regardless, it was easy, I suppose, to be a little bit effacing on Sunday after the Penguins earn a point, and Jarry was a huge portion or part of that. And as you look at the Penguins' last 7 games, 5-1-1, you dare say the goaltending has been the biggest issue. Or let me rephrase that. The biggest reason that they've got 11 points in their last 7 games. So where the Penguins go from here, clearly if Tristan Jarry plays well enough over the next 10 games, he becomes the goaltender for next season. He said he was auditioning for the role. When he came back up, he's like, yep, I'm auditioning for the Pittsburgh Penguins for that role. His contract is still probably as untradeable as anything. It's not quite Ryan Graves' territory of untradeable, but it's still a big risk for a team to take on 3 more years of Tristan Jarry. So if we're looking at realistic future potentials, the most likely is one of two things. One, he stubs his toe, he has a meltdown, and everyone's like, yep, that's the Tristan Jarry we expected. And then they buy him out in June. 2, which is the path that he's on, he's the goalie next season. While Joel Blomqvist figures it out and gets back to the NHL, while Sergei Murashov just keeps surging. Murashov has won 10 in a row as we speak anyway. Maybe he won 2 more yesterday. I don't know. He seems to be just stacking wins faster and faster. So getting to the questions, let me pull it up here from Twitter. And I thought this was kind of it's a question I haven't gotten a lot of lately, and I'd love to talk a whole lot more about it. So it came from a Wampa 1. What is the realistic best timeline for the development of the Penguins goalies in the system? Well, let's go with realistic. Realistic, you're probably looking at Murashov playing a full second year professionally in the AHL. Realistically. And Philip Larson might be the guy who kind of gets lost in the shuffle because unless Blomqvist has a really good training camp, and Blomqvist is going to have to win his way back to the NHL. Next fall, he's going to be in direct competition with Alex Nedeljkovic, unless Kyle Dubas makes room. Given that Dubas signed Nedeljkovic last June to a 2-year deal, I don't see him moving Nedeljkovic along to make room this summer. I think they want that competition. I think they want everybody pushing each other. So that situation is to be determined. Murashov will be the other goalie in Wilkes-Barre. Blomqvist, I don't know about anymore. I genuinely don't. He got so thoroughly picked apart in his most recent NHL stint that I have some questions. I have some doubts, sure. I think you'd be stupid not to, wouldn't you? So that's the question mark. Philip Larson probably does get, he becomes the odd man out despite having a really good season in Wilkes-Barre. Best timeline? I think best timeline puts Murashov in the NHL, let's say next January, very much on the same Matt Murray kind of timeline. Don't forget, 8 years ago, Tristan Jarry was supposed to be the guy, and Matt Murray, a later round draft pick, was he 3rd, 4th round was Matt Murray? Murray was supposed to be the backup guy. But Murray just stopped pucks and kept stopping pucks. And so the organization got a little disjointed, get their nose out of joint about Tristan Jarry's practice habits and how seriously he may have taken some things when he was younger. And Murray zoomed past him. Obviously, you know the results of that. That really could happen with Murashov and Blomqvist. You could see the kid with the frozen princess on his pads and his mask there just go right past Blomqvist. Just, he sure looks special. He just stops pucks. He's a little bit raw, as Jason Spezza said a couple of weeks ago, but don't count him out because he's done it at the MHL level, the KHL level, the ECHL level, now the AHL level. He hasn't broken stride yet. No one's cracked the kid. So I think next January would be the best timeline for him to be in the NHL. If I'm betting, I'm going to say next January, February. I would bet on the kid. All right, what was the other question here I wanted to get to from Twitter? David Markovitz. Who could be someone the Penguins target this offseason via trade, free agency, or offer sheet? Well, David's going way too broad. we've talked about the RFAs. We talked about them last week. I'm going to jump to the UFAs this week. And forgive me, I put them on my phone. I don't think they're... let me rephrase all of that. I don't have a great... I don't have a great feeling yet on which way the Penguins are going to go. There's still so many moving pieces and parts, and things could change that one or two moves, and I'm going to give you an entirely different list. So don't record this and play it back. See, Kingerski doesn't know what he's talking about. He said the Penguins would do... Yeah. I think the name everybody wants to watch is Mitch Marner, since I'm the guy who started all of that 2 years ago, saying that in 2 years, watch Mitch Marner. I have to kind of own that. I don't see it happening unless the Penguins pick up 2 or 3 good young players between now, or between the end of the season, rather, and the start of free agency. They'd have to almost win the draft lottery or somehow get the second pick. And then you start thinking, oh, okay, now we want to add around this kid quickly, whether it's, second pick might be James Higgins or whomever it will be. It's highly unlikely, however, that Marner is a Penguin. So you can take Marner, Sam Bennett off the list, Brock Besser, take him off the list. There's just something about Brock Besser, though. You almost wonder if he's got Vancouver fatigue and he pulls kind of a Johnny Gaudreau, where he chooses a city that he wants to play in, that he likes. That's East, easy travel schedule. He'll get paid good money. Maybe takes a bit of a discount to do it. And that has a whole lot less pressure. As much of a pain in the butt as I can be in the locker room, I pale in comparison to the throng of Vancouver reporters or the throng of Montreal, Toronto reporters, right? I mean, I can ask the dickhead question from week to week or time to time, but I am not Vancouver. You could see Brock Besser take a deal like that. I don't think the Penguins would be interested. I do think the Penguins would serve themselves well to have a transition. You don't want to see them sign a bunch of one-year plugs once again. You don't want to see Evgeny Malkin go out that way. You don't want to see other guys go out that way surrounded by temps. Having said that, however, the Penguins surely could use another left wing that can put the puck in the net. How about Taylor Hall? Talk about veterans on a short deal. Give him more money than you would, than he'd get elsewhere. Have him come in, play with Evgeny Malkin for a year. Or maybe he plays with Crosby and Rickard Rakell goes back with Malkin. I do think Malkin deserves a little bit of love for his final season. Playing with Connor Dewar and Philip Tomasino, while maybe good for the organization, good Lord, put the baffles back in, you schmuck. Where was I? Yeah, I mean, that line has had some juice lately, but long term, it's not going to be a reliable scoring option for you. And I don't think the Penguins would be deluded into thinking so. The Penguins surely could use another left wing, maybe another right wing too. Maybe Tomasino isn't the guy long-term on that second line. You want to create some space for Ville Koivunen and Rutger McGroarty. I think that's realistic. A guy like Taylor Hall. Victor Olofsson is another kind of a scoring lefty that can, I think, play both sides, rather, that you might take a look at. He seems to have become a vagabond, signing 1- and 2-year deals in LA and kind of getting bounced and punted around. It's never a good thing for an athlete to be, or player to be in that situation. But once you're there, you're there. So all you can do is hope to find the right situation, excel, re-sign, and go about your business. Those are, Olofsson, Taylor Hall are the kind of guys that I think would be on the top of the Penguins' reach. Would they want to come here? I suppose only if it's the best deal. They're not going to come here just because Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin are here. Those days, that's 5-10 years in the past. The Penguins would have to offer them something like, okay, if you can come in here, play really well, and have some good trade value, we'll work with you next March, and we'll send you where you want to go win a Stanley Cup. I think that's kind of what they did with Matt Grzelcyk. Kyle Dubas sort of alluded to that. And it didn't work out for Grzelcyk, but that's not because Kyle Dubas didn't follow through or didn't come through. If you want to talk big names, here's a medium name. And I know the Colorado folks are going to get mad at me. How about Jonathan Drouin? I wanted him last summer. Here's a guy who can play in the middle. If Malkin gets hurt or if they do trade Rickard Rakell or Brian Rust or anybody, Drouin can fit in the middle, fit on the wings, add offensive pop. He seems to fit into the Penguins' sort of creative, a little bit slower offensive scheme. The Penguins don't play as fast as they used to. They can't outrush teams now, so they don't anymore. I think Drouin's talent could be a nice mix. Drouin, I think, could be a Rickard Rakell replacement. Obviously, he's not going to score 35, but you get a guy with that talent, and if you need him to be beside Sidney Crosby, well, there he is. If the Penguins are going to spend real money in free agency, and they're going to have somewhere between $22 and $25 million. If this all goes through, how about, wait for it, Jakob Chychrun, pending unrestricted free agent. You take a big cog out of Washington. And here's the thing about defensemen. Because the cap is going to go up and go up and go up, if you get a defenseman this offseason for long term, let's say you give Chychrun his 7 years, $8 million per. You give him $756 or $7.9, 7 years, $63 million. You're getting him actually at a bargain compared to 2 years from now. And he's 26. That's the kind of signing I think would make sense for the Penguins. And they badly need defensemen. We don't need to go into that, do we? Do I have to go get into that? How badly the Penguins need defensemen. Okay, so there's my little UFA chat answering that question. Let me see if there was one more that came in late on Twitter. No, just a bunch of likes. Oh, here's a nice one from Cameron Britton. What free agents within the organization would I bring back next season? I think Matt Grzelcyk is a potential merely because there's nobody else. Grzelcyk could be top of the list again. He's your power play quarterback. Okay. Blake Lizotte is signed for another year. So is Noel Acciari. Philip Tomasino is a restricted free agent. I expect them to give him a little more runway unless he wants a lot of money. If they get into the negotiating table, kind of like P.O. Joseph last year, when Kyle Dubas said in early June, we're going to qualify him. It's just a matter of formality and time. Then by the end of June, they didn't qualify him and he became a free agent. I've never dug too far into it because P.O. signs quickly and was gone and other stories took its place. If Tomasino has too high of a number, then that becomes a problem. Then they start maybe talking about a 2-year deal for him and real negotiations take place. I don't think the Penguins are going to qualify him because he's old enough to be, to get arbitration. If not this year, then next year. And I think they're going to set a real value on Tomasino. Who else would I be missing? Timmins and Dewar. Sure. Timmins is signed. Timmins is a restricted free agent. Yeah. So there's not a whole lot of negotiating that Kyle Dubas has to do this summer. Not like last year when Marcus Pettersson and Drew O'Connor and some guys were free agents. There's the photo of Sergei Murashov I meant to put up. But make no mistake, everything we're talking about here, free agents, restricted free agents, it's still, you have to still rely on this guy, Sidney Crosby. Dubas doesn't want to go in the tank. The team doesn't want to go in the tank. And I tend to agree. They're getting in the tank regardless, right? They're already tanking. But they're not going to just clean house and broom everybody and hope to replace them. That's the Sidney Crosby effect here, is that they're going to keep a good top line. They're going to keep, I would presume, well, the defense couldn't get any worse, could it? And they will make some chicken salad where they can. And who knows? You never know when, like Washington, you hit the lottery a couple of times. Chychrun and Pierre-Luc Dubois and so on. And Protas and Connor McMichael. You just never know when that's all going to come together. So you keep your cards on the table. You don't fold. You don't punt. There was one more thing we were going to get to. Yeah, the shootouts. Kind of a shorter episode, I suppose. 30 minutes. Get rid of Sidney Crosby there. You're stuck looking at me a little bit more. The shootout question, that was, if you watch the postgame, that was me last night, kind of asking Tristan Jarry, Mike Sullivan about, okay, guys, you're 1-6. How do you improve? Quick side note. Just imagine if the Penguins were 6-1. What would 5 extra points mean for this team? Well, they'd be out of the top 10 draft pick. They'd be right there. They'd be right there on the cusp of a playoff spot. They'd be like, 2 points back, 1 point back? And playing this well, it's kind of funny. A skills competition. Now, obviously, the Penguins have infinitely bigger problems that have led to their abysmal record that's now getting a little bit of rehabilitation with this 5-1-1 streak. Kyle Dubas really should take a look at shootout players. Guys who can actually put the puck in the net in the shootout. At least one of them. Who was the winger? JJ. Jokinen. Jokinen, 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, was just money in the shootout. Like, 60, 70%. The guy didn't miss. Yeah, fix my hair. The wind is blowing me around. If Dubas can find a couple of wingers to contribute, if the decision's at all close, look at their shootout percentage. Period. End of story. Done. But in digging, this is why I get in trouble sometimes, is I don't mind digging. Sometimes you hit stone and you break your wrist, right? You shovel hits rock. You're like, uh-oh. Other nights, like last night, you put the shovel in the dirt and you actually find something. Here was Mike Sullivan's quote when I asked, okay, how do you improve? From a shooter's perspective, from a goalie perspective, how do you get this team better? He's like, that's been the age-old question. Should I do my Boston accent? That's been the age-old question that coaching staff throw around forever. I won't be disrespectful because maybe my impression is a little bit characterized. The obvious response would be, well, we could practice it, Sullivan said. But the challenge is you can't recreate that environment that those guys are participating in. When you put 18,000 people in the stands, you've got to go down there. It's very difficult to simulate that circumstance. So I've tried it a million different ways to Sunday to try to get better at it on different teams that I've coached. My experience has been you've got guys that tend to be inclined or you don't. He also made an indirect reference to Crosby, Malkin, and Letang's age, saying those guys historically were over 40%. Well, historically, that's correct. Over the last few years, Letang and Malkin have regressed to 29 and 30, 31%. I think the Penguins surely could use another stick or two in the shootout. Same with overtime, by the way. Evgeny Malkin last night, he does this thing in overtime. I know you've seen it. I know you've complained about it probably. He stays on the ice way too long. He has an opportunity to change. The puck goes out to neutral ice. He's there, and he stays on the ice. And at this point, you pretty much know one of two things is going to happen. Either team scores or the Penguins are going to score. Sullivan thought, put Blake Lizotte out there, and some people chuckled. And moments later, Lizotte almost won the game. I think the Penguins could use some zippy, quick guys in overtime, just for the skating factor. I think their older guys are a little gassed after the first shift or two at 3-on-3. Don't forget, Sidney Crosby is playing over 20 minutes, over 22 minutes a lot of nights. Chris Letang, I think, played 26 on Sunday or Friday. Yeah, so these guys are logging tons of ice time. Again, maybe another player who fits into their overtime mold, skates well and all of that. Even if they're not as gifted with the finish, if they're gifted with the feet, I think that's a team like the Penguins, or in the Penguin situation. I think those are the guys you're looking for, because you're not going to be able to pay a gifted feet, gifted hands guy. Well, you could, but they don't want to come here yet. So you're looking for just a gifted feet guy or just a gifted hands guy. All right, so that is the no pucks given. Let me double check here, make sure I didn't miss any Twitter questions. I did not. I suppose this is kind of a shorty, and I don't know if other people in this complex want to use the deck, so I don't want to be out here for an hour and a half like we are sometimes. But this road trip has been – I'm getting better traveling. I got ripped off at the Fort Lauderdale airport, and here's what the big yellow rental car company – I said, no insurance. I don't need the damage waivers. I don't need this. I don't need the fuel. Because, well, first of all, I have all that with my Amex card. Takes care of it. Done. Don't need to charge me. I get my slip, and I'm like, wow, that was a lot of money. That was more than I thought I was going to pay. I wonder why. Anyway, so I'm looking at the slip, and I realize he's added everything. Everything. Like $35 a day for insurance, $12 a day for this, for gas. I'm like, USOB. So I go back to the desk. He's not there. There's a line 9 or 10 deep now. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. So I wait for a few seconds. People are looking at me like I just cut the line, but I'm holding my ticket. So I was going to stand my ground and give this guy a little what for, but he's not coming back. So I walk back out into the garage and I call Hertz customer service. I didn't say Hertz. I meant the big yellow car company. You know what? It's their fault. Anyway, so I'm on the phone with customer service. I get my big, ungodly SUV. That's all they had for me. I actually rented a small car that was good on gas mileage so I could make the drive from Fort Lauderdale to Tampa and not burn through an entire tank of gas. Well, they give me a big SUV. I don't know why. So I'm on the phone with customer service. I'm driving. And they say, oh, no, don't worry. You can stop at any Hertz reservation center. Get them to take those charges off your bill. Don't worry. I said, listen, it's Sunday afternoon. Most of your places are closed. I'm not going to get to one immediately. No, you can do it tomorrow. No problem. So I'm driving from Fort Lauderdale to Tampa on Monday, and I stop at this little tiny airport that had a Hertz dealership kind of out in the middle of nowhere, Florida. And the woman looks at me and says, no, sir, you have to do that within 15 minutes of renting your car. And I said, well, I tried. I went to the desk. I called, and they said I could do it today. She's like, well, I'm nowhere near Fort Lauderdale. I'm like, I don't care. You're a Hertz desk. Take these charges off. She can't do it. So now I have to wait until Wednesday and try to yell at somebody who didn't rake me over the coals at the Tampa airport. By the way, the Penguins have practice on Wednesday now. They canceled the Monday practice, moved it to Wednesday. right during my flight. So I may or may not cover practice on Wednesday. We'll see. It's $150. It would cost me at least $150 to cover that practice. So things aren't looking good. I might just fly home and see you all in Buffalo on Thursday. I hate to miss a practice because I do have a scheduled conversation. I'm not going to tell you with who yet. I've got to sit down with somebody you want to talk to and talk about. I had a sit down ready for Monday. He agreed to it. I agreed to it. The PR agreed to it. And then they canceled practice. It's going to be an interesting conversation because I'm not going to go easy. And there's some information that we can really dig into. I'm also not going to be a jerk or anything, but there's an interesting conversation coming. Okay, so that wraps up No Pucks Given, episode 19. Do me a favor, like, subscribe, and do all that on your platforms, Spotify, the Apple. Make sure they download. Also, we put a tip jar on the website, and that's just because these travel costs are getting out of hand. They're getting crazy, and we've got a Wilkes-Barre, run coming up. We've got Sweden next year. We might have the Olympics next year, so there's just a lot of stuff that can't be budgeted for, and I don't want to have to scrimp on personnel, right? I don't want to have to call people in other cities and lay them off because I can't afford to float them because I'm traveling and all of that. You get what I'm saying. So we put the tip jar. That money goes straight to Pittsburgh travel, gets you more coverage, and maybe buys me more than a Sheetz or a Wawa hot dog on the average midnight on Thursday. So I appreciate you all very much. Kids, have fun. I'm going to go sit and look at the water. And then there's actually an Outback Steakhouse and a Bahama Mama just over here. I may wander in there too. All right. Have fun, and we will talk soon.